Question number 1, Brendon Kleen. What happens with Jonquel Jones? And what else on top of that do the Liberty do with some concern over Marie Johannes' status and some other things and their super team status? This, to me, is if Jonquel Jones decides to go elsewhere, this is already like the idea that there's a clear number 2 to the Aces number 1, I think, goes out the window. I think a lot is riding on Jonquel Jones even more than some other players we're going to get to.
Yeah. So I'm probably going to refer to this many times during this little preview, and we'll check back in because the moratorium is really long in the WNBA. It lasts all the way until February 1st, so things will kind of trickle. It's not the big flood like it is in the NBA, but the Next did a predictions piece, and they obviously are super plugged in and cover the whole league and do a good job of it. And going down the list, they have their Nneka Ogwumike prediction, Breanna Stewart, and then third is Jonquel Jones. And she was the first player after those top 2, former MVP franchise players in Ogwumike and Stewie, where there was actually some split among the Next staff of where the player would go. They got like 11, 12 votes for returning to New York, but then Atlanta and Los Angeles popped up here, which at least tells me that we're not crazy to imagine a world in which she does not come back. Honestly, though, the thing that makes me the most certain she would is that they need her so damn badly.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you do whatever you possibly can. I know that there are money limits. It's a salary cap sport like they all are. But, like, do you want to, can we help you find a nice, like, dog sitting company in Brooklyn? Do you want, like, catering from a different restaurant than maybe we did last year? Could we, hook you up with like whatever?
They're sponsored by Webull. Can we get a deep and varied portfolio of investments for Jonquel Jones?
Yeah. Can she take an off-season tour with the size to wherever it is that they venture around the world with their various business deals and get Jonquel involved? Like, whatever it takes, because I mean, their season flipped when she flipped, and they can't win the championship without her. So I think she has to go back. I think that they have to do whatever they possibly can, even if that means, for instance, moving on from other players, or I don't know. But they're not forget it, super team. They're not a title really top level threat without her.
There's no clear number 2 in the WNBA if Jonquel Jones leaves the Liberty, I think is where I end up with that. And there might still be a very large gap. I think if the finals last year taught us anything, is that the Aces are here and everyone else is a little bit down the pecking. All right, question number 2. Brendon, what happens with Elena Delle Donne?
Well, I guess where I look, and we talked about this a little bit when the news broke in a previous episode, that she was very likely to explore leaving, is I just go to teams that need offense, right? Because the reality is she is not a huge difference maker defensively. Even at her peak, she was not that. She's older now. She's had injury problems. I don't think you want to put her in a situation where she's trying to kind of lift a young developing team up and having to do too much. You don't want her on an older team where, injuries happen and suddenly she's lifting too much. So I know we kind of threw this out more from a geographical standpoint and her ties to the Northeast and everything else, but the Sun make a lot of sense to me. Connecticut makes a lot of sense to me in that we'll talk about another player momentarily who might end up being one of the bigger free agents that changes teams as well, and their center, Brianna Jones. I think their team is best when Alyssa Thomas is playing small. She was an MVP candidate, damn near won the MVP award playing that position for them after Jones got hurt last year. And it's a lot easier to fill in a smaller team like that when you have a big scoring forward like Delle Donne. They need offense. They need scoring. Tiffany Hayes has retired. That's the best match I can think of for her because their offense was 4th in the NBA, and I think that's in the WNBA, and I think that's where they've not ever been able to get over the hump. And she would do a lot to get them over that hump, I think, and really make them an even more formidable threat to that top 2 in the league.
You referenced it earlier. The Next has in their preview. That was the overwhelming winner, was the Connecticut Sun for her. Washington number 2, Indiana, Vegas, New York, and Seattle all tied. Otherwise, the real heel move would be Aces, just for like lulls, but the Sun make a lot of sense. And it would be, and also like considering her college career path and like everything, that would be kind of like a fitting full circle part of this as well. Not just like there would be something very fitting about her like going back to somewhere that she didn't end up in before she ended up as one of the best pros of the last 10 years. So she is still she's like 14 in their poll, which I don't really know what that means, but
yeah,
I'm
I was wondering the same
fascinated to see what
thing.
she
I
does.
think it might just be random because like Diamond to Shields is above her and like no.
Yeah.
So I think it might just be a random list.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't even realize she was on here when I was first scrolling until you said that, and I'm like, okay, how far down? But no, I think it's yeah. I mean, look, I think the other thing too is going to a team
Command
where,
F, Brendan. Just Command F, and you type
no,
in.
literally, I did. Command F Elena was where I was at while you were talking. I just think too, like you also, to my point about you don't want to go somewhere too young or too old. Like, yeah, Alyssa Thomas is a complete dog. I don't know how she never misses time. She acts like surgery is not even a significant thing. She's a superhuman. But like DeWanna Bonner is like about to be 37. That team is maybe not quite as deep as you would want, but it's at least somewhere where game to game she wouldn't be required to do so much. You know, she's going to a team with an MVP candidate. That does a lot to make it, I think, different than the Mystics, where we were talking last year. Are they a dark horse? Are they a dark horse? And it ended up being that she wasn't quite as great as she used to be, 4 or 5 years ago when she was winning MVP awards, and then the rest of the team wasn't able to step up in her place. So I think Connecticut gives her a little more of that. It's not perfect, but in a league where, the talent tends to consolidate, it might be her best chance.
Bingo. All right, let's go on to our next question. Brennan, that's what happens with Skylar Diggins-Smith. I think the name point guard on the WNBA free agency market, I think certainly someone who you would know this better than me because she was in your backyard, I think was pretty unhappy, to say the least, with where she has been at with the Mercury the last couple seasons. And I think there's some interesting places for her to go. To me, the Sun are one of them as well. If she could end up there, that would make some sense to me. I could see Chicago making sense. The Minnesota option makes a lot of sense to me as well if she wanted to go there. But this is someone that I think can go on this market and be a real difference maker for a team that wants to connect them. Is she going to make this help a team on her own necessarily become a title contender and give us another team that we can speculate about pushing the Aces? I don't know if I'm there with her, but I do think that she is someone that is going to go to wherever she ends up. She is going to go make a team much better and much more composed when she goes wherever she's going to go next.
Absolutely. My instinct has always been Atlanta, but then, they didn't show up on her guesses on this next preview. So now I'm kind of checking myself a little bit. I have their cap sheet up. They have almost $617,000 in cap space. They have only a couple of protected contracts in Cheyenne Parker and Alicia Gray. They have Ari McDonald and Haley Jones, who they've drafted in recent years, and A.D. Durr, who came in and kind of rejuvenated their career in Atlanta, but none of those players are like cornerstones of your franchise by any means. I mean, this is a team that I think the building blocks are Howard, Gray, and maybe you would say Parker, but even then, she's a vet. That's not a long-term answer either. So I'm struggling to see why Skylar couldn't go to the Dream and slot right in and provide them some stability. This is a team that blew leads frequently, that was a mess down the stretch of close games a lot of the time, turning the ball over and not having a lot of plan, and asking Ryan Howard especially to do way too much as a ball handler and creator that she's maybe never going to do, but definitely not ready for right now. So I still tend to think Atlanta, but I'm kind of feeling like I'm going crazy that the experts here did not peg her there, and Chicago was the other high vote getter in addition to your idea of Connecticut.
Where are you at on her, if it's LA or Minnesota or Seattle? Like, where are you at on some of these other options? It feels to me like she could fit a bunch of different places to varying degrees what it would mean. But I think there are just like a lot of good fits for her if you want to fan cast her at a bunch of different spots.
Yeah, she could fit anywhere. I mean, the Sparks, we just heard that they're going to move on from Jordan Canada in a sign-and trade likely, and she was a breakout player for them. Finally was able to get her offense to an efficient enough place that, you're talking about, a borderline all-star caliber player with how great her point-of-attack defense is, her transition scoring. They don't want her for some reason, or it doesn't make sense to keep her. Jasmine Thomas, who was on their team last year, just retired and is joining the Dallas Wings front office, so LA makes perfect sense. Look, she's a guard who can shoot, plays solid point-of-attack defense, and is unselfish. So, yeah, she fits anywhere. So it's just a matter of positionally which teams kind of need a lead ball handler. Not everybody does. But if you have that opening in your roster, you should probably explore signing Skylar Diggins-Smith.
Yeah, she's going to be good. That's going to be a very fun domino to see where that ends up. All right. Question number 4. Brendon, can a team or will a team come out of nowhere and make a big splash? Is there a team we're not thinking about? Is there a team that we're unsure about where they're at? Is there someone that's going to come out of nowhere and do something aggressive or at least push through something aggressive even if it doesn't totally work out?
Yeah, this is always hard in a 12-team league, right? There's not a lot of surprises or options for players and teams and movement like that. I guess the thing that I would maybe kind of throw out that is going to be the curveball in this season for the W is that it's an Olympic year. And so we're going to see the prioritization rules, which have been pretty controversial. I think, understandable from a league standpoint. What those rules do is they make you be on your WNBA team at a certain time for a certain amount of time so that your team knows if they're signing you, they have you, and the league knows. If you're on a roster, you're on a roster. Not, okay, I'm playing on the Mystics, for instance, but then I have to go away for 2 months because my national team I've signed a contract with them to play for the Olympics and all these camps and all these exhibitions and everything else. So players, whether they're international or in some cases American players who have gotten in with international teams of other countries, if those players can't commit to being here for the full season, they might just not play in the league this year and go play in the Olympics and whatever other various kind of things around that. So that's, I think, the other thing I'm watching. Gabby Williams is a name like that, and there's obviously plenty of international players. We basically saw Emma Miesemann, who was huge for the Mystics once upon a time, and the Sky when they won in 2021. She barely had a WNBA career because of a lot of this. So that's kind of the domino that I think we'll have to see kind of which way it falls.
Jackie Powell just wrote a really good story about this, I think, at Yahoo that people should go check out as well. My idea here is Brendon I stole this from our friend Sabrina Merchant from The Athletic. Indiana Fever. Let's get weird. Let's spend some money. Let's try to be aggressive. Like, Satu Sabale would be a dream. I think she probably just ends up back in Dallas. Also, I think someone with international basketball possibilities, which is complicated for this year. But I want them to just go try to find a star wing. Can they get Kalia Copper from Chicago? Can they, can you make a trade for somebody else? DeWanna Bonner, can you make a call on her and see if we could get there? Just go get, or at least attempt to go get a Sabali or somebody else. Throw them the max, see if you can get them or not. And roll into next year with Caitlin Clark, Nalissa Smith, ex-star wing, and Aaliyah Boston. Yeah. Let's go. Why not?
I love it. Some people seem to think that Delle Donne and Natasha Cloud are a package deal. I don't really know if there's any reason for that, or it's just kind of like a fun thing to imagine. But I like Cloud in Indiana, especially if they do get Caitlin Clark. We all can hype her up, but defensively, she's going to need some structure around her, right? So, get a great big point of attack defender like Cloud, and you have Aaliyah Boston patrolling the back line. You have a big forward defender in Nalissa Smith already, and she'll develop on that end as she goes. I like Cloud as the Fever's kind of big reach, and they have not a huge amount of money, but enough money to get one difference maker, and I think Cloud could be that player. But yeah, I mean, if they can reach higher and convince some other team to trade them something great, maybe Smith is kind of the thing you offer there. That could be cool, but probably more realistic is like you find your one target in free agency that's going to make a big impact, and I think with that they could make they're probably a playoff team. They could make some noise.
Yeah, they have like 10 players under contract already. Mm-hmm. Sabrina had this in her piece in her offseason primer. Caitlin Clark, let's just say Caitlin Clark turns pro, they draft her and they will at 1. Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Lexi Hall, Nalissa Smith, and Aaliyah Boston is a starting 5 you already have under contract. Then you also already have Erica Wheeler, Grace Berger, Christy Wallace, Victoria Vivens, and Victoria Saxton already under contract. That's 10 players. Like, you don't have a lot of money at that point, but maybe you get a little weird. Let's get weird.
I could see them trading Erica Wheeler. I know she's a franchise favorite, and she's being probably a little bit overpaid. But once you have Clark, and I think Grace Berger, I know that's like a very, very deep cut here, but she's pretty solid. So she could be a backup point guard, I think.
Also, just another like very easy like in-state promotional thing with Grace Berger. Like that's just like catnip, like there's some things they could do. I want them to get weird. Let's go for an Indian. You only live once, as the poet Drake said. All right, last one. Who can be a non-great superstar signing? Brendon, I think that Natasha Cloud, a name you already brought up, is my one for this. I just think her as a big defender that can go be on a really good team in a bunch of different spots, I think is my number one as far as that. But I think, if Jordan Candida, as you said, is going to be signed and traded, I think that's another one. Not quite a star, but someone that can go to a really good team and make a team better and fit into whatever they're building there. Like maybe her in Minnesota, maybe her in some of these other spots. I think those are two names to me that stand out as non-stars, non-super name players that can go and make a big difference.
Yeah, so I'll throw out one that would kind of be a domino effect of some of the other moves we've talked about. If the Sun were able to get, whether it's Skylar or it's Elena Delle Donne, and they spend some of their open money and maybe check off some of their we need scoring, we need shooting boxes in the offseason, I could see Rebecca Allen becoming available, and she's a player who is a big shooter, who has evolved to kind of be even more than that, a similar maybe trajectory to like a Duncan Robinson that we've kind of seen in recent years, where she can put the ball on the ground now. She can make the right pass. She's big enough to kind of use her body to defend. She's a fit everywhere. So I could see her coming loose from the Sun, and if she joined a team that already had some talent and maybe some playmakers to get her the ball, like she would make them a lot better too. So that would be mine.
The last name, she wasn't on the questions list, but she's a former MVP who obviously had last year kind of go a certain way, and we haven't heard much from her. Do you have any predictions about what happens with Candace Parker?
Feels like she's going to come back, don't you think? Wouldn't we have heard it by now if she was going to retire?
Yeah, I feel like maybe, but also she should take as much time as she wants, I guess. If she wants to figure it out, she'll be 38 in April. Like can't physically be the easiest thing after all the injuries and stuff.
No. I think if she were to come back, it probably would just have to be the Aces, in my opinion. I mean, unfinished business to some degree for her personally, right? And I think she's at a point in her life where she can take a pay cut, but I believe her wife is pregnant again. I don't know when they're due or anything like that, but she's building a family and starting her next career in media, so no one would fault her at any moment if she chose to hang it up, but she seems like a freak competitor who can't step away, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Jaya Taurasi is going to be like 50 years old still playing professional basketball, so like who are we to like speculate about Candace Parker?
I mean, it's one of those things, right, where when you're able to kind of step away from going overseas like some of these athletes have later in their careers, the WNBA season it's short. All things considered, right? It's not the commitment of like, some of these soccer players who are like 40 being relied upon way too much to go run around for 3 hours once a week and practice all the time and stuff.
And now you're seeing like ACL tears and like all these whack injuries. It's like, maybe playing a ton of games for all the time and all these competitions is actually bad for your long-term sustainability.
Yeah, whereas at WNBA, it's like, play your 40 games, we'll manage your minutes, we'll take it easy in practice. You have a good medical staff and, come up here for 4 months and then do whatever you need to do after that. So I think that ask being a little less than some sports is part of why these players are able to keep it going. But yeah, I mean, also the Olympics, right? Is Candace doesn't have the greatest record with Team USA. I don't think she'll be in it, but some of these other players are probably thinking that. So we'll see.